So this is the BMW iX xDrive 50. And I'm going to be testing it today, but it's going to be a little bit different because I'm actually going to be doing a range test today. I'm actually buying a car, and I'm in like the Jersey Shore area, and the car I want to buy is in Reading, Pennsylvania, so it's really quite far. So I figured what better way to drive all the way out there than to test the range on an iX. So we're going to see just how far we can get on one battery charge, which is not charged up all the way right now, but when it's full, last I drove this when it was full, it's at 311 miles. Now that should be enough, but we will see. And there's a DC fast charger, Electrify America DC fast charger with 150 kilowatt charging speed. That's sort of on the way. So the iX xDrive 50 is at the moment the top of the line model you can get in North America. There will be an M60 version on the way, but that's not for a little while. So this is the top dog model, dual motor, big battery pack, 105 kilowatt hour battery pack, 516 horsepower, 564 pound-feet of torque. Now BMW claims a max range of 324 miles. When I got in the car a couple of days ago, it had a fresh full battery, and it's at 311 miles of range. Now from there I drove about 100 miles, and for several of those miles I was really testing out the acceleration, so I was pushing it pretty hard. And I was on a highway almost the entire time, and I was going, let's say, quickly. And I still had 196 miles of range left on the little trip computer. So I had about 200 miles of range left after driving 100 miles, which I think is pretty good considering it told me I had 300 miles to go. Now that gives me confidence that I can do this trip in one shot and not have to stop off and charge. And I really hope that's the case, because out near where I'm going, there really aren't a lot of fast chargers.
I stopped off at a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger from Electrify America at the Jersey Shore premium outlets, where I could stop, grab a coffee, and hang out for a bit while it charged.
But I just plugged it in, so now we're charging. I'm at 65, 66 kilowatt speed. I'm at 150 kilowatt charger, so I should be able to get that because I know the iX can charge at that. So let's see what happens. 48% state of charge, touch to return. So it says 28 minutes left until it's at 80% at this speed. Hopefully that ramps up, because this will update live and tell me, that time will obviously shorten as the speed goes up. So let's hope that gets faster. I just got back in. The Electrify America station says I'm charging at about 80 kilowatts. It was at about 100, 102 kilowatts for a little while. Now the station says that we're at, well, both the station and the car say we're at 73%. The station says that we should get to 80% in probably the next 10 minutes or so. The car says we won't be at 100% until for another hour, actually.
Unfortunately for me, it really was an hour. The BMW iX can charge at 200 kilowatts, but once it reaches around 80% state of charge, it throttles the charge speed back significantly, which is what added so much time to my trip. And I was already on a tight schedule to meet the seller of my soon-to-be car.
So I am now on the long stretch of highway that I'll be on for the majority of this trip, 195 west. And so I'm kind of just cruising now, and what I wanted to talk to you about was the adaptive regen. It's actually quite interesting. So it uses, countless variables to determine how much regenerative braking you need in any given situation. So it will go from anything from the satellite GPS, like, if you're on a hill, if you're going through curves, if you're on a highway, if you're on a back canyon road, if you're whatever, residential zone, it knows where you are and uses that information. It uses traffic information. It uses sensors, so it can determine if a car is close ahead of you, or if it's far away, if you have no one ahead of you. It sort of knows what best regen to use, what amount of regen to use at any given situation. Now, it's really, really good for a number of reasons, and the biggest reason is that it's the most efficient, right? So it's going to use regen as much as it should, and then when you don't need it, it can coast, allowing you to, not use as much energy. So, right now I have it. It's an adaptive. I'm on the highway. There's really no one in front of me, so the Regen isn't really on. It's allowing me to coast. I can just kind of chill, lay off the accelerator and coast without any Regen slowing me down, which is great because then I don't need to use more energy to get back up to speed. But if there were a car in front of me close ahead, which I'll try to demonstrate in a little bit, I just don't want to use too much energy because the next car is quite far ahead and I don't want to, you know, use up some range to blast over there. But if there were a car close ahead of me, it would turn on the Regen quite aggressively so that when I let off the throttle, it would slow down a lot, allowing me to one pedal drive and recoup a lot of that energy, which is nice. It's really, really helpful. It's a really clever system. The only downside I would say is that it can be somewhat unpredictable at first. I'm assuming that if I were to live with this car for months, I would really get used to what situations it uses, what amount of Regen in, because it's not like an on-off switch. It's not all Regen or no Regen. It's, you know, varying degrees of Regen, which means that like sometimes it will use a lot, sometimes it will use a little, and if you don't know exactly when it's going to do that, it can be a little disorienting. Like maybe it gives you more Regen than you're expecting or not enough. And that can be a little odd, but I'm assuming that that gets much better once you live with it for a long time and you can sort of get a feel for what it's going to do. And then once you get a feel for what it's going to do, it's probably perfectly fine. But I've really come to enjoy the fact that I can click it into the B mode, for the heavy Regen mode, and Regen really hard around town and really do one pedal driving around town. And then when I'm on the highway, click it off really simply. There's no, like some cars use paddles to adjust the Regen. Some cars, you know, you have to dig through menus. This is just one click right there. It's really, really easy and simple to use, and it's very effective, and I like that a lot actually. So range update, because that's the main priority of this video, is to see about the range. So I have 93% battery left and 266 miles of range, according to the 265 miles of range now. Now, my destination is 105 miles away with 265 miles of range. Now, that should get me there and back if the range is accurate. But I'm dropping miles like crazy right now. And honestly, I'm not averaging that. It's not that efficient. I'm only averaging 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which isn't very good, to be completely honest with you. A Model 3 will get, you know, closer to 4 pretty easily, 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And this is at 2.5. It's 46 degrees outside still, so it's not super cold, but it's not warm either. Like, it's not ideal temperatures. And I'm surprised because I'm driving quickly, but I'm not going crazy, and I haven't been hard on the accelerator at all. Where I live is about 100 miles from where I pick BMWs up from. So when I picked it up, I had to drive 100 miles back. And I thought the range did really, really well. I mean, I had 100 miles to go. It took 100 miles off the claimed range, and that was it. I still had 200 miles left, basically. So I thought that was great. Like, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, what it said on the package. Like, that's what it did. I was really impressed by that. But now I'm losing range like crazy. So I'm kind of nervous that I'm not going to make it there and back in one charge, which is fine. I can just stop off and charge. That's not a big deal. But I want to get this there and home on one charge. Like, that's my goal. So I'm going to reduce my speed a little bit because I'm going like 75-ish. So I'm going to reduce my speed, and we're going to see if that helps. I'm not trying to hypermile it. I'm trying to drive this exactly as a normal person would drive their iX on a highway trip, just normally. That's how I'm trying to drive. And admittedly, I'm very used to internal combustion cars. So like, I'm kind of driving it like that a little bit. So I'm trying to relearn how to drive an EV over long distances. Another sit rep bought my car, so I'm now the new owner, the proud owner of a Monaco Blue E93 series. So that's nice, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm now on my way back home. I'll pick up my car tomorrow. I now have 130 miles to go to get back home. That's my trip. It should take me about 2 hours and 26 minutes according to Google Maps. I have 160 miles left on my battery, 160 miles of range left on my battery. So that should give me 30 miles of breathing room. That's not a lot over the course of 130 miles. 30 miles can change. I can lose 30 miles quite easily, you know, on the way back. So it actually might be a bit of a nail biter to get home. That's going to be interesting. I have 52% battery left. However, it's warmed up today. It's now 54 degrees outside, so I won't have cold really working against me as much, even though that's really not that big of a difference from the 46 or so degrees from before. The good thing is that the majority of my trip, not the majority, but a good chunk of my trip in Pennsylvania should be downhill, because it was very uphill. The last like 20-30 miles or so were very uphill. My next 20 or 30 miles should be downhill. So after my little pit stop, I now have 133 miles to go and 158 miles left on the battery. So I'm in a little worse shape now. But it shouldn't be too bad, and I should still make it. So I'm gonna get started. I have exactly 50% left of the battery. It is 2:02 p.m. I should get there at 4:18. 52 degrees outside. We should be all right. I'm averaging, we'll see what I average my kilowatt hour. So let's hope this works out well, and let's try it. It's gonna be a nail biter, I think. So I will leave you for now, and we'll catch back up once I'm on the highway and, you know, kind of cruising, and I'll give you an update on, you know, my range and my efficiency and all of that, and how much I have left to go. Okay, so I just wanted to discuss something real quick while it's fresh in my mind. I've been using the adaptive regen a lot on the highway, and I've talked about it a lot so far, but I want to keep talking about it because it is really important. It affects how you drive, it affects your range, it affects a lot of things. It affects how you interact with the car. It's a very interesting feature that's very new to me. It's funny, Horatio and I were talking about it last night before I did this test, and I had only driven the car a little bit, and I was telling him I didn't like it. I said it's unpredictable. I felt it was a good idea in theory, but in practice it felt unpredictable, and it didn't do exactly what you wanted all the time, and you know, it just kind of, it didn't give you a confidence in it. And that's how I felt then. Now that I've spent a few hundred miles in it, in this car using adaptive regen, it's brilliant. It is a stroke of genius. It works fantastically. It is a game changer in my opinion, because it completely changes the way you drive the car. It gives you regen only when you need it and only when you want it, and it doesn't regen when you don't want it. And it's brilliant, and it's always right. It's always bang on. So for instance, the reason I turned the camera on right now, even though my range and mileage has barely changed since I last updated you, I just got onto, this is Route 176 and in Pennsylvania, and I just get on, and there was very little traffic ahead of me, and then people came off of an on-ramp and they cut in front of me. And as soon as they cut in front of me, the regen kicked in and started to slow the car down. So not only did it give me the braking that I needed, that I was going to do anyway, but it's regen helping me put energy back into the car, and it kind of turned regen on for that moment. So I could feel it regenerating. It's slowing the car down, which I didn't have to do now, because I like lifted my foot off the throttle to kind of coast, because I knew I was going to be braking soon anyway. But it noticed the car in front of me and turned the regen on, thinking, okay, you're going to need braking now. Let's use some regen to recoup some energy. And that's a brilliant little trick. And it worked seamlessly, instantly, and exactly when I needed it to. Yeah, my range really hasn't changed. I have 146 miles left on the battery, 123 left to go, 47% battery, 52 degrees outside. I'm averaging 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. It's been the same for the majority of the trip. Hopefully I will recoup some energy with regen. And then I will, catch back up with you when there is an interesting update. So, see you soon.
After over an hour on the highway, enjoying the adaptive cruise, the incredible Bowers & Wilkins surround sound, and the lovely cabin, I was back in Jersey and on the final stretch. Things were looking good.
So a little bit of an update. I am now officially off of highways, and I'm back in Jersey, and I am back onto normal, kind of roads. This is kind of like farmland out here. So it's pretty like long, straight and narrow roads with the occasional like maybe curvy back road, but it's mostly like big, long, straight roads. So I should be able to just cruise for a little while still, but it's not going to be like as high speed or as consistent as the highway. So I'm hoping that my range isn't affected too badly by that. Now, I still have 34 miles left on my trip, and I have 67 miles left on my battery charge, it says. I'm at 19% battery though, so it's really, the percentage is dropping quick. 67%, or 67 miles rather, is still, you know, it's quite a bit. I mean, it's quite a bit more than my 34 mile. Now that I'm off the highway, I switched it back into the B mode, regenerative braking mode, which is far stronger than the adaptive, because it's just always on and it's always strong. And there's three different settings. There's low, moderate, and high, and I have it in the high setting. And it works really well that way. I feel like if you're gonna have Regen on, have it all the way on, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna intentionally put it on the strongest setting and use the true one pedal driving. Otherwise, keep it in adaptive and just let it do its thing. All right, folks, I think we did it. We did it well. 2.9 miles away from my house, and I have 47 miles left on my range, which is really good. Yeah, that was great. The car did a great job. I mean, it made it all the way there. I had 288 miles in the charge. I did about 250 miles, and I have 46 miles left, according to the trip computer. So, with 12% state of charge, I think that's pretty damn good. I think that this car in the right conditions can realistically get you 300 miles. I don't want to say easily. You're probably going to have to like hypermile it just a little bit to get 300. But I think you can very realistically get 300 miles in this car.
After driving through some of New Jersey's most boring rural roads, I was nearing home. Any worries of having to stop off and charge first were alleviated once I hit my final stretch of road and realized I had far more than enough battery to make it home. I couldn't contain just how impressed I was with the iX.